This week, the HPT returns to our Iowa home at the Prairie Meadows Racetrack Casino Hotel. This beautiful property nestled around the cornfields of Iowa once again delivered great poker action for all who came to play. Now, after a weekend of hero calls and bad beats, this competitive field of players are now down to the Elite Nine. They're playing for the coveted HPT title, unreal money, and bragging rights that will last a lifetime.
This is the HPT.
Sit right down, put on your poker face, you with the big dogs now. Better bring your best game, talk trash all you want. To me it's all the same, you won't leave with much when you come in second place. And I'm the one with the stack showing 7 to the jack. Gon' cry to your mama cause I'm sending you back. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. Last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand.
Hello everyone, and welcome again to the HPT, where real people win unreal money. I am Fred Bevel. By my side as always is professional poker player Maria Ho, and we are at the Prairie Meadows Racetrack Casino Hotel in Altoona, Iowa, just outside of Des Moines.
It's good to be back here at Prairie Meadows. They have great hotel, great dining, an action-packed casino floor, and as always, a very competitive player field. Prairie Meadows once again delivered a great tournament experience for the HPT faithful, and once again, these players built a prize pool worth just under $200,000.
A little over $54,000 of that awaits the last player standing, but there's a lot of poker to be played before we get there. Maria, per usual, there's a couple of short stacks, but I can't count how many times we've seen a player go from the lower range of the chip counts just to take down the championship.
Exactly. The key is they've made the final table. Now anything can happen. A rush of cards, well-timed bluffs, and solid play will grow anybody's stack. In the later stages of a tournament is what separates champions from almost champions. The shorter stacks will be looking for the right spots to make moves, while the bigger stacks have to walk the fine line between aggression and disaster.
Get ready, everybody. We are in for a fun night of poker. Let's take a look at the money on the line and the starting chip counts at this final table and get right to the action.
The final 9 players are all eyeing that top spot. The winner is going to take home over $54,000, but the rest of the prize pool doesn't look too shabby either, with the 9th place finisher taking home just under $5,000.
Just under $5,000, nothing to sneeze out. Most of this field got in through the qualifying system, so a lot of these players are in this tournament for just under $400.
Matt Henig is our chip leader coming into this final table, but not by much. As you could see, Nick Marsh is very close behind him. There aren't really any short stacks. As you can see, a lot of people are bunched up in the middle there, but Ron Schultz and Dash Signs are shorter with about 28 and 22 big blinds respectively.
Blinds at this final table are going to start at $4,000, $8,000 with a 1,000 chip ante. Chris Louvier was under the gun, and he raised it up to $25,000 with ace queen. Matt's going to fold. Next to him is Andy Van Blair. And this is Dash Signs. And in the 9 seat, we have Nick Marsh. Everybody folding. Over to the 1 seat now, Terry Ring. He lays it down. This is Ron Schultz. He's going to fold. And it looks like Eddie Engel is going to go ahead and see a flop with Chris with 6 deuce suited.
It's a little bit loose. Not loving that.
And now the action is on Rick Golden.
Rick's in the big blind with Jack 10 suited. Definitely a hand he's going to come along with. Three ways to the flop. Eddie will be first to act. And the flop is 10-3 king, couple of spades. Rick has flopped middle pair and a flush draw. Huge flop for him. Chris, who is the original raiser, has a gut shot straight draw and ace high at the moment. It gets checked around. Turn is a 3 of clubs.
And Eddie on a stone cold bluff is going to fire $30,000 here on the turn, and he's going to get called by Rick's flush draw. Chris with just ace high and a gut shot straight draw. Maria, I don't really see him hanging out any longer, but
yeah, but it is only $30,000 to call, and You know what? He instead is just going to raise, which, you know, isn't a bad spot for him to try to represent a stronger hand than he has. Although I don't know if Rick is going to go anywhere for just 60K more.
Chris is one of those players I was talking about earlier, only has $360 invested into this tournament. The worst he'll do today is going home with just under $5,000. He could go home with over $50,000.
Rick's just wondering if maybe his flush draw is dead because the board is paired. But I don't know. I think the way that this hand is played, he probably does have to just call the $60,000.
Rick is from Des Moines, Iowa. Plans on using his prize money to buy a motorcycle. Love that. River is a queen of clubs.
And now Chris has the best hand. He rivered a better pair than Rick had, and Rick didn't hit his flush.
So Chris Louviere is going to stack the first pot at this final table worth just under $300,000 in chips. We're just getting settled in here at Prairie Meadows Racetrack Casino Hotel. A lot of poker left to be played as we play down to a champion right after this on the HPT.
We're back for some more fun here at Prairie Meadows, so let's head back inside.
Nick Marsh is our new chip leader with $841,000. Matt Henig in the second spot, and a lot of people still bunched up in the middle. Nobody really in that danger zone. Dash Signs still has 19 big blinds.
Yeah, real tight bunch here. One big swing pot could make all the difference at this final table and change the dynamics dramatically. We're continuing on with the same blinds at 4 and 8,000 and a 1,000 chip ante. Action started on Dash Signs. He folded, and now we're on Nick Marsh. He's got pocket sevens. Nick is from Fort Dodge, Iowa. Is a Hormel production supervisor. Plans on using his winnings to make a down payment on a house and play more tournaments. I love that on the HP team. People using the prize money to better their lives, have some fun with it.
That's what it's all about. I say keep poker a hobby, people. It's a lot more stressful when you're doing it for a living.
And action's been folded around here. We're back on Matt Henig.
I don't think face cards are allowed on this end.
And Matt is going to make the call with Queen 9 suited. As the flop comes 9-8 deuce with a couple of spades.
Matt has hit top pair of nines here, and he checks it over to Nick, who also checks back. It's a good check back on that flop.
Turn is the 4 of hearts.
And now Matt bets 27,000, hoping to get a little bit of value, and I imagine Nick's gonna call the turn here. Nick did check back the flop here, and he could expect that Matt might try to take a stab at this pot because of that. Nick's taking a little bit longer than I would think to call this bet. It's fairly small, and, you know, like I said, Matt's very easily going to lead out here on the turn with nothing.
Well, Nick does make the call. Perhaps the 2 over card scared him a little bit.
And the river is the king of clubs, and I feel like that might slow down Matt a little bit because it's very likely that Nick could have had ace-king and called the turn.
And Matt's not believing that. He's going to fire another 27,000.
And it's just such a tiny bet. It was the same amount that he bet on the turn, and I feel like Nick's going to have a hard time folding, especially because he's a little bit confused as to why Matt would lead the king on the river, that it almost looks like Matt's bluffing.
And Nick is going to make the call, and Matt's going to table Queen 9 to show that he flopped top pair. And Nick is going to have to muck the pocket sevens. Blinds are moving up, 5 and 10,000 with a 1,000 chip ante. Ron Schultz first to act in this hand. Action's folding all the way around the table here. We're back on Chris Louviere. And now over to Matt Henig, defending champion here at Prairie Meadows. Cards are pretty flat so far, not a lot of action. And now we are folded down to the blinds. Nick looks down at 9-5.
And Nick decides to raise from the small blind, making it 25,000 to go with 9-5.
I like that. You're betting into a random hand. Why not just try to take it down? But he is going to get a call from Terry.
And the flop is ace 4 queen, 2 clubs.
It's a good board for Nick to continuation bet.
Terry does have a gut shot straight draw for Broadway, however, and he might end up calling one here, and we'll see what happens on the turn if Nick is willing to fire again.
Nick bets 40,000. Maria, I think you're predicting correctly here. Terry's going to call at least one.
Terry calls.
And now Terry will be looking to see if that slowed Nick down at all. The turn is the King of Hearts. And that makes this hand a lot easier to play for Terry.
Yeah, that's definitely a good card for Terry. I don't know what Nick is going to do here. It seems like it might be a good card for him to bluff at again, but he just doesn't realize that Terry is probably going to stick around.
Well, if he wants to sell the story that he has an ace, he has to bet here, and that's what he does. He makes it 80,000 to go.
And I like the bet size by Nick. It's just unfortunate because I don't feel like Terry's going to go anywhere.
All right, Terry really seeing the ball well. Nick raised pre-flop, and he fired on the flop. The river is now the Queen of Spades.
And that actually might be the river card that Nick's going to be able to bet Terry off his hand. But I feel like it's hard for Nick to fire three barrels. He has to assume that Terry might have had a queen from the flop, considering he called the flop and called the turn. So he might just end up checking here, and Terry's probably going to just take this pot down at showdown.
He's going to check, and I can't see Terry firing here. He's just going to turn over the hand and show the winner and scoop just under 300,000 in chips. Nick tried to tell the story. I would have believed him personally. Terry did not. He kept in the hand, and he's going to scoop a nice size pot. More poker on the HPT when we come back. Welcome back to the HPT. I am Fred Bevel. This is Maria Ho, and we have players battling down to one to be a champion. Let's check in with the updated chip count.
And it looks like Matt Henig has reclaimed the top spot with 749,000. Andy Van Blair is now in second position with 631,000. And our short stack is Dash Signs with 13 big blinds.
Not a lot of room to play for Dash, pretty much down to just one decision, all in or fold. Blinds are continuing at the 5,000, 10,000, 1,000 chip ante level. And Chris Louvier will be under the gun. He folds over to Matt Henig. And now it's Andy Van Blair's turn. He peels back Ace King.
Andy's picked up quite a few big hands at this final table so far.
He's been playing them pretty well too. He's gonna raise here, makes it 25,000 to go. And now action is folded to Nick. He's got pocket fives.
Nick has over 50 big blinds, so this is a spot where if he wants to play, he should just call and try to set mine.
And that's exactly what he's going to do. He makes the call. Terry's going to make the call as well with King Queen. Now over to Ron Schultz. Ron yet to play a hand. And Eddie Engel's going to see a flop with A7 suited. And now we're on to Rick Golden.
Rick's getting plenty of odds to call here from the big blind with King Queen. It's going to be a five-way pot to the flop.
And here is the flop.
The flop is 8-7 ace rainbow, and it looks like Andy, who has top pair with top kicker, is out flopped by Eddie, who's flopped top and bottom pair with aces and sevens.
Nick's pocket fives have been out flopped. Rick and Terry with King Queen have nothing. I hate saying that about King Queen, but they have nothing.
Never stopped you before, though.
Really?
Actions check to Andy, and he continuation bets with top pair, top kicker. Terry folds.
Rock and roll.
Eddie decides to put it all in right here.
And why not with the action in front of him?
And he doesn't have many chips left, so this is definitely the play. He's just got to hope that Andy has an ace to call him with.
Andy does make the call, and he's going to see he started out the hand way ahead, but just got outflopped here. And now Andy's going to be looking for a king and only a king to retake the lead and eliminate Eddie. You know, Eddie, interesting enough, doesn't list himself as a professional poker player, has professional gambler written on his sheet here. He's 33 years old from Baltimore, Maryland.
The turn is the four of spades. No help to Andy. He's looking for a king and only a king. Otherwise, Eddie is going to double up here.
Eddie also says that he plans on using his prize money to lose it at Paigow.
And the river is the deuce of diamonds, and Eddie is going to double up, although I'm not sure that we want to enable this kind of gambling, so.
I love it. I love it when they plan on using their prize money for gambling. That's a guy that can be my friend. So a little over $500,000 in chips going Eddie's way now after outflopping Andy's ace-king. In action in this hand, we'll start with Terry, a very proud Vietnam vet, and we're proud of him. I can't even count how many times we've seen Terry at HPT events over the last few years. It's fun to see him at a final table.
Once around, it'd be nice.
Actions folded around to Rick Golden.
Rick has suited connectors. Can be a fun hand to play.
The more I make, the better your tip is.
The pot is unopened to him, but he decides to take the more tight and conservative route here. I wouldn't have minded seeing him open. He does have over 30 big blinds.
Action folded around to the button now of Andy Van Blair. Might be the coolest name at today's final table, Andy Van Blair. Whenever you have three names, you just sound cooler.
And Dash finally decides that King 3 in the small blind is good enough to go all in, and in an unopened pot, that's definitely good enough with his stack to move all in.
And it's a quick call from Nick, who wakes up with ace-queen in the big blind.
But as you can see from the percentages, Dash isn't even in that bad of a shape.
No, Dash has 2 live cards, just needs to hit.
How many times I'll root for the
I'll call one out for you.
So Dash signs tournament life on the line here with King 3 offsuit. Hoping to connect on the board here and stay alive at this final table. Otherwise, Nick Marshall claimed the first bounty at this final table.
And the flop is Queen Jack 10 Rainbow. That does give Dash an open-ended straight draw. Nick has top pair and a gut shot.
Well, Nick doesn't want to hit 2 pair now.
the king.
9.
The turn is a 3 of clubs. That opens a couple more outs for Dash. Another 3 will win him the pot.
3. It's 3.
11.
3 hearts. 3.
Oh, wow. And the river is the 3 of spades. And Dash is going to double up with running 3s there for his tournament life.
Crazy.
The action has just gotten started, so we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more from Prairie Meadows. Welcome back to HPT Poker here at Prairie Meadows in Altoona, Iowa. It's time to go back to you, Marie and Fred.
Matt Henig hang on to the chip lead position, hoping to win back-to-back here in Iowa. We have a pretty close race with about 4 players in the middle of the pack here. And our short stack Dash Signs isn't even that short with 22 big blinds.
Still anybody's game, a lot of room to play for these players. Over 55,000 waiting up top as blinds continue on at 5 and 10,000 with a 1,000 chip ante. And it looks like Rick Golden is under the gun here. He's going to fold over to Chris Louvier. No love for Chris. It's ace-jack offsuit for Matt Henig. And he is going to give it a little baby bump to 26,000. And next to him is Andy Van Blair. He has king-queen. Expecting a 3-bet here.
I like to actually see him call. I think that his hand's a little bit too good to 3-bet in the sense that he doesn't want to get 4-bet and have to fold.
He does make the call. Action folded around now to Nick Marsh.
But I mean, Fred, if you had king-queen, I'm sure you'd 3-bet.
Absolutely would be 3-bet. That's why I'm never at a final table. And now Nick lays it down. Action's moving over to Terry in the 1 seat. He's going to quickly fold the button. And onto the small blind of Ron Schultz. Ron, originally from Wood River, Nebraska.
Ron folds. Eddie calls with 7s in the big blind. I'm sure even if he had 2 pieces of blank paper, he would have called.
That's why he's dangerous. And look at this. Eddie flops top set. Unfortunately for Eddie, Matt and Andy have nothing here. Let's see if anyone tries to get tricky. Action right now is on Andy.
Andy does check behind. And the turn is the jack of diamonds, and it's a good thing Eddie did check on the flop because now Matt has turned top pair with top kicker. Eddie bets 50K. Matt quickly makes the call.
And Andy is going to fold his king-queen. So on to the river we go.
And the river is the 10 of clubs. And I think Eddie needs to realize that that's probably not the best card for Matt to probably make a call if he bets too big. Oh, but you know what? Eddie can't hear me. So he's going to go all in and actually overbet here.
Yeah, that's way too big of a bet, I think, Maria. Unless he's trying to make it look like a busted flush draw, and Matt's going to try to pick him off with top pair, top kicker.
I just think that if Eddie was betting an open-ended straight from the flop, it came in on the river. But, I mean, I guess Matt feels like that's what Eddie had was a busted flush draw, and he is going to make the call. And now Eddie looks like a genius, and I look stupid. But you know what? I personally wouldn't have gone all in on that river.
That's all right. That's the beauty of poker, my friend. A million ways to play the hand, and they're all wrong. But Eddie is going to double up with a set of sevens after over-shoving on the river there. Got Matt to think it was a busted flush draw, and thought he was going to make a hero call. Action in this hand will start with Chris. Let's see if Matt's got some steam coming out of the ears. He does not. He's going to fold. And now over to Andy Van Blair. He's got Jack-Queen offsuit.
He lets it go. Dash folds. It's on to Nick Marsh.
And Nick wakes up with rags, pocket aces. And Nick is going to make it $25,000 to go with his pocket aces, hoping to get some action. It won't be from Terry. Let's see if Ron will oblige. Ace-6 offsuit for Ron. He wisely folds, and it's another pair of sevens for Eddie.
He makes the call with sevens.
And Rick is going to get out of the way. So Eddie, once again, maybe lightning will strike twice in as many hands if he can find a 7 on the flop.
The flop is deuce 3-9, a couple of clubs. And Eddie just immediately leads into Nick here, betting 25K. And this is where I feel like past hand recollection really helps. Nick knows that just the hand before Eddie slow played his 7, so I think it's fair for Nick to assume that Eddie doesn't have a set this time. It just looks a little bit weak when he bet out so fast on that flop. I think he would have thought about it a little bit if he had a set.
Sure, I like it. I didn't even pick that up. So now Eddie's going to check when the 3 of diamonds falls on the turn. Nick's going to check behind.
I don't like that check behind by Nick at all. I think I would have liked to see Nick bet quite large actually on the turn. I think he should want to stop Eddie from seeing the river cheaply if he had a flush draw. But, you know, on the river, Eddie decides to bet again, and Nick just calls. And I feel like with that run out, Nick really missed a lot of value with his overpair.
It is that time of the show, my friend. I'll just admit it, it's my favorite segment. A Poker Life featuring legendary poker player Doyle Brunson, brought to us by our friends at Ace Play Poker. This week, Mr. Brunson regales us with the stories of his lifelong friend Amarillo Slim and his love for prop betting.
Well, Slim was not only a poker player, he was kind of a con man. He always had a different proposition for different games. Like I know he played Bobby Riggs. You know who Bobby Riggs was? A famous tennis player. He played in ping pong with, the deal was Slim could choose the paddles. Well, he took iron skillets for paddles, and he'd been practicing. And Slim was very coordinated and could do a lot of things, you know, and hand and eye coordination. And he'd been practicing, so naturally he beat him. And he did things like that all the time. He could run, I think, a 440 in less than a minute, was what it was. And that's what happened. He grabbed a hold of a horse's tail and just jumped along behind him. And again, I mean, it's pretty difficult, but he could do it. And he always won his proposition.
Playing ping pong against a world champion with frying pans. Only Amarillo Slim could pull that off. More poker from the Prairie Meadows Casino Racetrack Hotel when we come back.
Welcome back to the action here at the HPT in Prairie Meadows. Let's go back inside for more action.
Eddie Engel, after that huge double up and a few other pots, has become our new chip leader with just under 700,000. Nick Marsh has moved up to the second spot with 561,000. And we don't have really any short stacks here, so I'm expecting there to be a lot of post-flop play.
And the biggest swing you can see on the graphic here, Matt Henig has slid way down to just second in chips here as he's had the chip lead most of the day. That one big hand he got tangled up with Eddie has cost him a lot here, but Matt's got the game. He can definitely grind back. Blinds are moving up here. They are 6 and 12,000 with a 2,000 chip ante, and it looks like Chris Louvier will be under the gun. And he is going to raise it, makes it 30,000. Matt's going to fold, and he's going to take a look at his cards. He says no thank you. Over to Dash, and now over to Nick.
Action is on Terry. Looks like he is going to call here. He does just call with ace-king, and I think it's a testament to how tight maybe Chris has played that Terry doesn't want to 3-bet his ace-king here. Just gonna keep the pot small.
See, now, this is where I think Terry absolutely should have 3-bet, because now we're going 4-way to a flop.
I agree, and also because of Chris's tight image, you can expect that he's not going to 4-bet you unless he had a huge hand. So I do think that 3-betting is the better option here. And ace-king really shrivels up 4 ways, and it looks like Rick is also going to get involved here with 5 deuce from the big blind, so 5 ways to the flop here.
A 9-handed final table, we're going 5 ways to the flop. People need to start raising a little more at this table, I think. The flop is king of clubs, 9 of clubs, 6 of spades.
And Terry has flop top pair with top kicker here. Although Ron does have the nut flush draw. Action is checked over to Terry.
Eddie also has second pair. Everyone else has missed this flop.
And I like to see Terry bet on the bigger side. The board is fairly draw heavy. You've got a lot of people involved. And he makes it 100K. I like that size.
And Ron here with the nut flush draw, probably going to at least see a turn.
Well, it looks like Ron has just under 400,000, so I imagine he might just go all in. Doesn't really make sense for him to commit over a quarter of his stack and not be able to see both cards.
What's your thought on going all in on a semi-bluff, though?
I think it could be dangerous because there are a lot of people in this hand, but at the same time, I think you have to realize that if you're going to put in 100,000 of your 400,000, then you don't want to get into a situation like this where you might just have to fold the turn.
The turn is a 9 of diamonds. Let's see if Terry sees that as a scare card. He might. He checks. See if Ron takes advantage of this check now. He does not. Maybe a missed opportunity for Ron as we go to the river, which is a 6 of diamonds. So we have a double paired board, and Ron has missed his flush draw. Terry's going to fire 20,000 on the river. That seems low.
I think Terry's making kind of a defensive bet here, and, you know, Ron is going to call.
And Ron's just going to call with ace high. That's how small the bet was.
I just feel like this final table, compared to a lot of other HPT final tables, has played quite timid, actually, and I think I would really like to see all of the players get more value from their hands and really just amp up the aggression overall.
Well, let's see if they can hear you. As action is folded around. But back to Terry, who just put about 400,000 in chips into a stack after that last hand. He's got queen 7 this time. It looked like he was going to fold, then he put the cards down and he's staging some chips. So he goes from visibly looking like he's going to fold to limping in. Eddie's not going anywhere. He's got 2 cards. And now it is Rick Golden's turn. He's going to call.
And, you know, I'm just not really sure why Terry limped in here when the pot was unopened. Once again, it's just a little more of what I'm talking about. In a final table, you should be happy to pick up the blinds and the antes. And, you know, nobody is really taking the initiative to do all that.
Here comes the flop. It is 4, 6, ace, all diamonds.
Well, Matt and Terry's completely whiffed this flop. Eddie has a gut shot, but you know, it's not really the kind of draw you want when the board is all diamonds and you've got 2 hearts in your hand. Rick has a pretty nice looking hand there with top pair and the 5 of diamonds, but Chris has middle pair and the 10 of diamonds.
And Chris is the one who's going to do the betting. Makes it 21,000. Eddie is going to make the call with a gut shot straight draw.
And I just don't think Eddie has thought through this hand well, because what is going to happen if the turn was the 7 of diamonds? It just puts Eddie in a really bad spot.
And the turn pairs the board with a 6 of clubs. Good card for Chris.
That actually gives Chris trip 6s now. And Rick still just has top pair. Eddie is going to fold.
And Rick is going to call here with top pair.
And I think Chris is pretty happy now if a diamond doesn't come. The river is the king of spades, and Chris very quickly moves in. Just 105,000, a little less than half pot.
And Rick is going to make the call. And wow, Chris is going to table his 3 6s. Rick has to show an ace with a very weak kicker.
I think Rick was hoping that it was a chopped pot on the end there, maybe aces and 6s with the king kicker playing. But you know, you never really want to call in chop situations, and it was very unlikely that Chris was going to bluff for his tournament life when his bet size only represented less than half the pot.
Well, Chris is going to get a much needed double up here. And that's going to move him up the chip ladder pretty significantly. 431,000 going his way. Terry going to lay it down. Now we're over to Ron. Eddie's going to take this hand off as well. So is Rick. Chris, fresh off the double up. It's going to pass this time. It looks like ace 9 of hearts for Matt Henig. And he is going to go all in.
Matt Henig with 18 big blinds just shoves all in with ace 9 of hearts. And I like that play because ace 9 suited on the button there is too strong to raise fold. So he might as well just shove and, you know, hope that the blinds don't wake up with a huge hand like Dash has here with kings.
Dash woke up with a monster, makes the quick call. So both these players pretty even in chips. Dash has Matt slightly covered. So Matt's going to hope to find hearts or an ace on this board.
And the flop is 3 deuce 10, 2 spades. No help to Matt. Definitely not the flop he was looking for. There's no hearts out there for him, so he's just looking for an ace on the turn or the river, or else he is going to be our 9th place finisher.
Matt Henig defending his championship from this event last time we were here at Prairie Meadows. And right now he is 1 card away, an ace and only an ace, from being eliminated in 9th place.
And the river is not going to do it for Matt. It's the 4 of diamonds, and unfortunately, Matt came into this final table as the chip leader, hoping to go back-to-back here at Prairie Meadows, and he's not going to be able to do it. Dash is going to get pretty much a double up, essentially.
Yeah, they're going to have to reconcile the chips here for a quick second, just to make sure that Dash had Matt covered, and it is confirmed Matt is our 9th place finisher. Not the way he wanted it to go, but a great run to make consecutive final tables at the same event is certainly something to tip your hat to. More poker from Prairie Meadows when we come back. Welcome back to the HPT as we play down to our newest champion, Maria Ho. Let's check the latest chip count.
And because there was such a tight race around the middle and the top of the leaderboard, the leader keeps changing every time we do these updated chip counts, and now it looks like Eddie Engel is our chip leader with 768,000. Terry is not too far behind him though with 707,000, and Ron Schultz and Rick Golden are on the short stack with 17 big blinds and 10 big blinds.
Yeah, the bottom 3 names on this leaderboard definitely going to have to make a play soon. Andy has a bit of a threatening stack still, but the other 2 are reaching that point where they're going to get called by anybody.
You definitely don't want to lose your fold equity when your stack is short.
Nick's going to raise it to 30,000 here with ace-5 offsuit.
Chris has been fairly tight at this final table. He's just going to call with ace-queen suited.
I would have liked to seen a 3-bet there. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now Andy Van Blair has suited connectors, 8-9 of hearts. And Andy here with about 28 big blinds has that perfect 3-bet shove stack. So he's just going to go ahead and call.
I think Andy sees 9-8 suited as a hand where, you know, if he flops huge, he might get paid off more than if he just shoves all in and the people fold.
The flop is 8-10-5 with a couple of clubs. Andy connects with a pair of 8s. Nick has flopped a pair of 5s. Chris is sitting on ace high. Nick's going to bet 65,000, and that's going to be good enough to get rid of Chris. Andy with middle pair here and a 9 kicker on the decision.
And I think Andy's just thinking about calling here. He does have middle pair, some backdoor outs as well.
And he does make the call.
He's hoping no paint cards come on the turn, I'm sure. The turn is the ace of hearts, and that's interesting because it does give Andy the backdoor flush draw now, but Nick has top and bottom pair with aces and 5s. And I guess Andy decides that, you know what, I'm just going to move all in here on a semi-bluff with my pair and my flush draw. He's quickly called by Nick, though.
And now Nick just needs to fade a heart or an 8 to send Andy home.
Nick shows ace 5 for 2 pair.
Oh, and the river is the king of hearts, and Andy does make the flush here. And just like that, Andy is going to double up huge, leaving Nick now as one of the shorter stacks.
Blinds are going up. They're now 8 and 16,000 with a 3,000 chip ante. Ron Schultz under the gun this hand. He is going to fold. Eddie,
I'm just going to bet.
we'll just call Eddie the loose cannon at this table. He's a gambler. He's having fun. He's got king 7 offsuit and he's raising it up.
What's the lines anyway? 8-16.
That's going to get Rick out of the way. Now we're on Chris. He's going to fold.
You know somebody's a loose cannon when they don't even know how much they're going to raise the pot until they have their chips already out there.
Just grab a handful and put them out there. Whatever it is what it is. Looks like Dash is going to play against him. He's got 4 deuce suited.
Dash decides not only to play, but play hard. He is going to re-raise here with 4 deuce suited, but he just makes it a very small re-raise to 80,000. And given how loose Eddie's been playing, you would think that Dash knows that he should be 3-betting a lot bigger if he wants to just take this pot down pre-flop.
Nick was really hoping to wake up with a hand there, but it didn't work out. He has to fold. And Terry's going to fold behind. So here we are, heads up.
And like I said, even with king 7 here, Eddie feels priced into call because he is a gambler. And so now Dash is going to have to play post flop with a very loose, aggressive player with 4 deuce suited. The flop is Jack 10-8 rainbow.
And Eddie's going to check. That leaves the door wide open for Dash.
And Eddie has a gut shot for the dummy end of the straight draw here. But I don't know. He's not one to give up too easily.
Dash bets 65,000. Eddie is going to make the call. So both players just seeing who's going to blink first at this. As the turn comes the ace of hearts.
That's a good card and a bad card for Dash. He could easily represent this ace. But now Eddie does have a double gutter. And like I said, Eddie looks like he's the type to call on a draw.
Dash fires again. This time makes it 105,000 to go. Double gutter, meaning there's 2 ways for Eddie to make a straight. Eddie's hoping to find a queen or a 9 if he makes this call, but he is going to choose wisely and fold here. And Dash is going to bluff the bluffer.
You got to give it to Dash that he at least followed through with his 3-bet there, both on the flop and the turn. And, you know, luckily for him, Eddie didn't feel like paying for a draw that time.
More poker from Prairie Meadows in Altoona, Iowa when we come back on the HPT. Thanks for coming back to the HPT, where life-changing money is on the line for one of these players. Let's check in with the updated chip count and get right to the action.
And we have yet another new chip leader here. Andy Van Blair has claimed the top spot with 841,000. Dash has 715,000. And there are a few shorter stacks here in Chris Louvier and Ron Schultz, but they still have a little bit of room to maneuver.
Still 8-handed here at Prairie Meadows here in Iowa. Blinds are going up. They're now 8 and 16,000 with a 2K ante. Action in this hand will be on Rick Golden. You know, of all the people that have plans for the prize money, Rick is my favorite at this final table. He's going to use his money to buy himself a motorcycle.
Wow, that is awesome. Chris just limps in here with ace-6 and Dash calls with king-jack suited, and I really just don't understand why this limping thing has caught on at this final table. It's not something you want to make a habit, especially when the rest of the players are fairly timid. You want to be able to take down these blinds and antes at this stage. They're so valuable, and you just don't know where you're at after the flop a lot of the times.
And that is the main reason to raise, isn't it, Maria? To get information from the other players, to find out where your hand is at.
I think a lot of these players are scared to play big pots or to put their tournament lives at risk, but you have to understand that you have to take the reins here a little bit.
The flop is 4-4 Jack Rainbow.
Well, it looks like Eddie and Chris didn't connect with the board, but Dash does have jacks and fours with the king kicker. Terry, nothing here, but Ron also has jacks and fours, but with a 10 kicker.
This could get ugly between the two players with jacks.
Ron decides to bet 45,000. I think Dash should just call here. There's no real reason to raise.
But he does raise, he min raises, and that's going to be good enough to get Terry out of the way. Now Ron is facing 45,000 to see a turn.
I imagine Ron's just going to call once on the flop and see what happens on the turn. The reason I don't like Dash's raise here is because you're not going to get better hands to fold out by this raise, and you're actually going to lose hands that are worse than yours. So I just feel like calling was the best move there.
The turn is the 6 of clubs. Right now, both players have jacks and fours, but Dash has the king kicker.
He also does have a backdoor flush draw to go with it, although he doesn't need it. Ron checks it over to Dash, who is going to bet 185K. It's more than half the pot.
And see, this is the problem, going back to your earlier point with not raising pre-flop. It's entirely plausible that Dash could be holding a 4 right now and not just a jack with a better kicker, because he was unchallenged to see a flop. And instead, he's going to scoop a big one here, just under $500,000 in chips.
But I do think Dash lost some value if he didn't raise on the flop. I feel like Ron would have check-called the turn. Ron might have ended up folding the river, but I think Dash could have extracted just a little bit more.
Chris and Andy fold this hand, and so does Dash. Nick is not at the table right now, so action will move over to Terry. And Terry's staging some raisin chips. And I know my partner to my left is happy to see someone raising pre-flop. He makes it 45,000 to go.
Terry raises 45,000.
Call.
And Eddie's going to see a flop, not a surprise.
I think instead of counting how many times Eddie calls, we should just count the times he folds, since that would be easier to keep track of.
Eddie likes to play the poker, no doubt about it. Action now on Rick. Rick's trying to ladder up to get that perfect motorcycle.
There's a winner, did you, Rick?
It's going to be heads up to the flop with Eddie first to act. And the flop is 10 Jack Ace Rainbow.
Eddie has paired the jack, but Terry paired the ace and also has a gut shot straight draw, but he doesn't need it. He's way ahead in the hand. Only one club on this flop for Eddie as well.
And Terry puts a rather big bet out there of 85,000, and I love how Eddie just doesn't even think about it, and he's like, got a pair, put it in.
Eddie gave him a look and then tossed the chips in the middle. As the turn comes to deuce of clubs, now Eddie picks up a flush draw to go with his second pair, and he's going to put them all in the middle.
Even with free ones.
I think Eddie's taking a play out of Andy's playbook there, just moving all in on a semi-bluff pair and a flush draw here, and Terry's going to call.
Jack or
Terry
club.
shows ace of diamonds, queen of clubs for top pair. Queen
A club is what Eddie needs, and that does not happen as the 8 of spades comes on the river, and that will do it. And the 33-year-old gambler from Baltimore, Maryland is going to leave us in 8th place, going home with just over $6,000. Maria, that's plenty of money to blow at a pie gout table.
So far into this final table, I think Eddie's play is just a little too loose and a little too wild for my liking. But you know, one thing you could say about Eddie is he's very unpredictable. As far as the other players go, I think most of them are playing a very timid game, and I really don't think that as we keep going through this final table that that's really going to stand.
Yeah, these players are definitely going to have to turn up the heat and get aggressive, especially as we get into more short-handed poker. A lot of money waiting up top for one of these players. We'll see who takes it down next time on the HPT. Now, do you think you have what it takes to sit and compete at an HPT final table? If you're watching the show, I'm guessing you probably do. Log on to hptpoker.com and find an event near you. The first beer will be on me. For Maria Ho and guest sideline reporter Christy Arnett, I am Fred Bevel. We'll see you right here next time on the HPT.